So many investors just go out and they look at nothing but the numbers when they look at investment properties, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, house flips, whatever it is. But our guest today, Katie Cline, who's an award-winning PR executive and the host of the hospitality.fm original podcast, Sweet Success, she recommends looking at your rental investments through the lens of lifestyle assets. Katie, I'm really excited to hear, what that means and why we should all be looking at our real estate investments a little bit differently.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a topic I'm so passionate about, and I'm a fairly new real estate investor. I own two short-term rental properties in upstate New York and one long-term rental back in London in the UK, where I was living for about 6 years. And really, my short-term rental investing strategy has been, what are the places that I want to go? What are the types of places that I want to stay? And while this is obviously personally beneficial, because when the property isn't booked, myself and my family get to use it ourselves, it also is really helpful for me understanding my guest, because I know the types of people who are coming there. I know their needs, their wants, and I'm able to cater to them better, which I believe then gives them a better experience and then helps with my guest satisfaction scores overall.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, you certainly have an inside track on what your ideal customer is looking for, your ideal guest is looking for. One pitfall that I have seen some investors fall into when they look at short-term rentals and second homes, that they start blending those two concepts together, and it can be a slippery slope of justifying overspending on a second home that you're planning on also using as a vacation rental by calling it an investment, when they may end up losing or spending far more money on it each year than they would actually want to spend on their personal travel for that time. What would you tell audience members who worry about that particular risk here?
I think that is a very valid risk. I think the issue is you have more emotion tied to it than you would with typical investments, right? And you could see the perfect place and go, oh, I could just see my family there and I need this to happen and it's going to be fantastic. And you're not looking at the numbers. So we really always start with the numbers. AirDNA is a fantastic tool to give us an approximation of what that property could earn. Both of my short-term rentals outperform the AirDNA estimate, which is great. But I also look at the PriceLabs estimate as well. That tends to be a bit less. And that's my worst case scenario as well. I think the other thing to consider is, besides looking at like the numbers, is what is your actual goal? Because maybe your goal is to have one amazing property in your dream destination, and you're okay with it just offsetting some costs, not fully paying for itself, and utilizing those tax benefits that the STR community loves on your W-2 income. That's great. So maybe that's your goal. But if your goal is for cash flow, then of course you really need to be particular about it. And actually, for my husband and I, there's one market that we would love to invest in. And that's exactly our conundrum: is it's not going to cash flow. It's probably not even going to fully cover its own costs. So we need to be at a point in our investing journey that we're aware and we're able to do that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And looking at any investment, real estate or otherwise, through the lens of the numbers and the important metrics, that can help keep it on the colder, more rational side of your brain and keep some control over that. And in particular, in the case of short-term rentals, keeping a close eye on seasonality as well, because the cash flow in the high season looks very different than the cash flow in the shoulder seasons and the off season. So that is, of course, really important. And property management, it costs more with short-term rentals than it does for long-term rentals. So it's another thing to keep in mind.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something that I've seen. One other risk here that is just maybe worth exploring. I've seen this happen with my dad and my stepmom, where they have two second homes, and that really eats up all of their vacation time every year. They don't have any bandwidth to go anywhere else. They're basically locked into these two homes. So yeah, it just seems like another just point of risk with this. If you start you start crossing that line into second homes as opposed to short-term rentals. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think it goes back to your goals as well. So right now, my daughter is 2.5. So for the last couple of years, we weren't necessarily jumping on a plane as much as we were before she joined our life. So the fact that we had a place that we could go get away to that was within a 3.5 hour drive was really conducive to our family. The other thing you touched on is seasonality. One of our properties is in Lake George. It's a really hot summer market. We would love to be there in the summer, but for us, our goal is to maximize the money that we're making on that property, on both of our properties, really. At this moment, we're not going to displace guests, and we'll be waiting for Thursday at 5 p.m. And if nobody's booked for that weekend, instead of having the typical disappointment that you would get of, oh man, I'm missing out on revenue, we're like, yes, we get to go use it this weekend. But we really do have to have that flexibility. So you're right. It definitely could hinder the places that you're traveling to or the amount of money that you want to spend. But I think the fact is also you get to know a destination so much deeper than if it's just one place that you're going for the weekend.
Yeah, I love that. And that makes so much sense that you're not leaving any money on the table if you're only using it at the very last minute when it's not booked.
Right.
There's no opportunity cost to you. You can just hop in the car and go do it.
Right.
Now, it does have to be accessible. So you mentioned that yours is 3.5 hours away by car, which is great. But that is a prerequisite here. It can't be in another country or on the other side of the US. Yeah, so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Katie, in 30 seconds or less, how do you help people and how can people connect with you if they want to take you up on that help?
Thank you. So on Instagram, I'm at by Katie Cline. That's BY Katie with a K, Klein with a C, like Patsy. And as you mentioned at the top, I host the Sweet Success podcast. That's sweet like hotel suite. I come from a deep hospitality background. So I love speaking to hotel executives, hospitality leaders, just innovators within the industry to learn and take their brilliance and put it towards my short-term rentals. And we're at Sweet Success Podcast on all the social channels and sweetsuccesspodcast.com.
Awesome. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today. And guys, if you enjoy these quick, focused conversations that we have, please rate and review the show. It makes a world of difference to us. And on that note, we'll catch you next time. Want the cash flow, appreciation, and tax benefits of real estate without becoming a landlord? You've heard of REITs and real estate crowdfunding, but you probably don't know much about 5 other ways to invest passively in real estate. So we put together a free video course for you to show you how to consistently earn 15% plus returns from 5 lesser known hands-off ways to invest in real estate. And even more importantly, we'll keep risk front and center in that whole discussion, because really, what's the point of investing for high returns if you also take on high risk, right? So visit sparkrental.com/free to take our free course. Each video is snackable at 10 to 15 minutes long, and the entire course takes less time than watching a movie. Looking forward to chatting with you from within the course.